For over a century, the oppressive Rixen Star Empire had dominated the Orion Quadrant, conquering or subjugating all species within their reach. With technology far beyond anything humanity possessed, the Rixens had effortlessly crushed Earth's defenses when they had encountered the isolated planet decades ago. Since then, humans lived under the thumb of their harsh overlords, treated little better than slaves or cattle. But no longer. Humanity's spirit could only be oppressed for so long before rebellion took root. In secret, a nest of resistance had grown, slowly accumulating resources, allies, and most importantly, righteous fury against their oppressors. Scientists and engineers had worked tirelessly, risking discovery and death, to develop advanced technologies to match the Rixens. Now, finally, the pieces were in place to shake off the yoke of oppression and take the fight directly to the empire that had ground humanity underfoot for so long. The leadership of the Terran resistance convened deep in their hidden base, carved out miles beneath the surface of Ceres. Representing cells from across the solar system, the council met in secret session to make the decisive declaration. "My friends, we all know why we are here," said Councillor Yael Arendt in solemn tone. "The time has come for official declaration of war against the Rixen Star Empire and their puppet rulers." A chorus of solemn acknowledgement echoed around the chamber. Each member carried the burden of their oppressed people, hoping now to avenge those lost under Rixen rule. While humanity has justly feared the Rixens for their advanced technology and brutal fleets, we have not been idle, Arendt continued. In the shadows, we have toiled to produce our own innovations, and now we believe humanity has a means to take the fight directly to them. At this, Chief Engineer Saul Perrin rose to unveil their secret weapon. A hologram flickered to life, displaying schematics of a sleek, dangerous-looking vessel. "May I present Project Supernova," he announced. "A ship designed to induce controlled supernova explosions in targeted stars. We plan to use it strategically against key systems along their border." Excited murmurs filled the chamber. Council members leaned in, hope kindling in their eyes for the first time in ages. Here was a means to bring the Rixens to their knees. "The science is sound," Perron said confidently. "With the subspace field generator we co-developed with our allies, the Takarians, we can destabilize the core fusion reactions of a star, causing it to go supernova. The resulting shockwave of radiation and debris will utterly devastate any inhabited systems within range, cutting off the Rixen supply lines and carving their empire into pieces." He keyed the hologram, zooming into the powerful engines. "Construction of Supernova 1 is nearly complete, hidden in the Kuiper Belt. Once unveiled, nothing the Rixens have can stop it." Enthusiastic applause rippled around the room. Finally, they possessed a weapon to match the mighty Rixen war machine. Arendt raised a hand, calling for silence. "The power to reshape the galaxy is at our fingertips. Let us deliberate thoughtfully on how to prosecute this war once declared. Our goal must be nothing short of full liberation for all species crushed under Rixen tyranny." For hours, the brightest military minds of the resistance debated strategy. They planned daring strikes on Rixen shipyards to pave the way for their revolutionary Supernova-class ship. Locations of border star systems were evaluated for optimal impact to fracture their empire. "The next months will be pivotal," Arendt said gravely as the council prepared to depart. "We must continue cooperation and information sharing between resistance cells to maximize this opportunity. The days of Rixen oppression will soon end. Stand ready. War is imminent." With the fire of hope and vengeance burning in their hearts, the weary resistance leaders dispersed into the shadows, ready to unleash humanity's fury upon its oppressors. War would soon shake the galaxy. Following the Secret Council's momentous declaration of war, The Orion Quadrant seemed to hold its breath, blissfully unaware of the coming storm. But in the darkness of space, feverish activity propelled humanity's plans forward. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, perched on a frozen dwarf planet, sprawled the heavily guarded Project Supernova shipyards. Thousands of workers, engineers, and scientists, both human and alien allies, swarmed over the half-constructed hull of the apocalyptic ship that would bring the Rixan Empire to its knees. Inside the cavernous primary construction bay, Chief Engineer Saul Perron gazed up proudly as massive engines capable of cracking a star's core were lowered into place. The technology represented decades of research and subterfuge to obtain the needed components right under the Rixans' noses. "Install the phase emitters into transaxial slots," he directed the engineering teams. "Careful, even inactive, the gravitational shear could tear you apart." Around him was a meticulously orchestrated dance of mechanized arms, anti-grav lifts, and technicians in void suits, seamlessly coming together to assemble the civilization killer. When complete, Supernova 1 would be the most advanced and devastating ship ever constructed. Perron's life's work made real to avenge the untold suffering inflicted on humanity. "Chief, the lithium core is online and stable," reported lead physicist Jana Schultz. "Shall we commence integration protocol?" Perron nodded. "Let's wake this beast up. Send an activation signal on my mark." He watched tense minutes tick by as Schultz's team powered up the lithium reactors that would drive the subspace field generators to tear reality apart inside a star's core. All indicators flashed green. The heart of their apocalyptic engine was alive. "Phase emitter synchronization underway," came the update, linking to the main computer now. Like neurons firing in a brain, sensors lit up across the ship's frame as it awoke. Perron could feel the hum of barely contained power trembling through the decks. What they had achieved here was no less than godlike power over creation itself. "We've done it," he heard someone whisper reverently. This was no mere ship, but an instrument of destiny. As the team swarmed to complete installation of the asteroid-sized phase emitters, Perron's thoughts turned to the daunting task still ahead, delivering his supernova-inducing masterpiece deep into the belly of the Rixan Empire undetected. Despite all their secrecy, he had no illusions that word of war had not reached Rixan ears. Their feared intelligence apparatus was legendary for rooting out secrets. Perron could only hope that the declarations of the Terran Council remained cryptic enough to conceal the true nature of Project Supernova. To further mask their plans, the Resistance had leaked information about Project Pitfall, a fictitious plan to detonate fissile bombs inside unstable stars near the border. It was outlandish enough to be believable while hiding their actual intentions. With any luck, it would focus Rixan efforts on that phantom threat. Timing would be critical. As pieces of the Resistance's plan fell into place, Perron knew the completion of Supernova 1 would trigger the next phase. Supporting strikes deep in Rixan space would sow confusion and pull their fleets out of formation. In that window of distraction, Perron's ship would have to race beyond the border and behind enemy lines undetected to deliver their deadly payload on key stars. Perron sighed, the weight on his shoulders feeling as heavy as a star. So many years, so much sacrifice, so many lives lost had led them here. Failure was not an option. As he watched the emitter arrays lock into place, he steeled himself for the trial ahead. Soon, Supernova 1 would be fully assembled and awaiting its chance to slip through the border. Then, his crew would guide the ship on its fateful mission, navigating the deadly gauntlet ahead. And when the moment came to finally ignite the first Rixan star into an expanding ball of annihilation, humanity's fury would begin to burn like the supernova itself, searing aside anything in its path. Perrin only prayed that the Rixen Empire had no inkling of the hell about to be unleashed on them from the darkness of space. For if they discovered Supernova 1, all could be lost. But he knew that if it came, for the sake of all enslaved species in the quadrant, they must not flinch or falter until liberty was won. The galaxy was about to be remade. A tense silence filled the bridge of the Supernova 1 as it glided through the inky blackness of space. After months of preparation, the moment had finally come. It was time to take the fight to the enemy's doorstep. Chief Engineer Saul Perron stood rigid, hands clasped behind his back, as he watched the main view screen. He could feel the thrum of the enormous engines through the soles of his boots, like barely contained energy yearning for release. But he remained patient. The ship's devastating power must only be unleashed at the right moment. "Approaching staging point in 15 minutes, announced Navigation Officer Rahul Singh, all systems operating at peak efficiency. Perron nodded. "Take us in slow and quiet. We cannot risk detection." Their staging point was an asteroid base hidden in a nebula safely beyond the Rixen border. From there, they would commence their risky infiltration mission. No one spoke as the minutes ticked by. The crew knew the monumental stakes of success or failure. Finally, Singh gave the signal. "We've arrived. Docking underway." Through the viewport, Perron watched robotic arms extend to latch onto airlocks. As they connected, he turned to his first officer. "Lieutenant Wells, accompany me to the base. We need that intelligence update." The base, carved into the heart of the asteroid, was abuzz with activity. Dozens of resistance agents and engineers were preparing two smaller ships docked beside the Supernova 1. Perron was greeted by Geeta Gopalan, intelligence liaison to the Terran Council. Her usual mischievous smile was replaced by a grave expression. "Saul, things have grown complicated," she said without preamble. Perron's jaw tightened. "What's happened?" "Our insider operatives report the Rixens have increased border patrols. They are actively searching for us." "Damn it," Perron swore. "Have they discovered our plan?" Gopalan shook her head. "As far as we know, Project Supernova remains unknown to them. But the closer we get to their space, the harder it will be to slip past their net." Perron's mind raced through options. Their window of opportunity was narrow and closing fast. "We go now, before it shuts completely. Have the infiltrator ships depart ahead of us and run dark. We follow in their wake before the Rixens can zero in." For a moment, he let uncertainty creep into his thoughts. Was he sending those brave agents on a suicide mission? But it quickly hardened into resolve. Too much sacrifice had led them to this point of no return. Failure was not an option. Gopalan must have sensed his thoughts. She put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We knew the risks long ago, Saul. For the hope of freedom, we will gladly blaze the trail for Supernova to follow." Perron nodded, gratitude welling up in him for her steadfast courage. "Then let's light the way forward. It's time to remind the Rixens why humanity should never have been trifled with." In quick succession, the infiltrator ships detached and rocketed away, running dark and cold. 20 minutes later, under full stealth, Supernova 1 slipped free of the asteroid, following in their ion trails. Like a leviathan from the abyss, the apocalyptic ship plunged towards its destiny. CLU clusters monitored all surroundings for signs of detection. Perron held his breath, half expecting silent Rixen hunter-killers to materialize at any moment. But the smaller ships appeared to be clearing a safe passage. Gradually, the Rixen homeworlds began appearing on long-range sensors. "So far, so good," Wells muttered under her breath. Perrin tensed as they crossed the border, the point of no return. "Steady," he told his rigid bridge crew. "Our moment comes when we ignite the first star. Until then, we are ghosts." Deeper into the nebula they flew, a dangerous game of hide and seek. Enemy patrols crisscrossed the sector but seemed focused outward, oblivious to the infiltrators and the wolf moving among their flock. Finally, Gopalan's voice crackled over the comm. "First checkpoint cleared. You're nearly there. Light it up, Saul. We'll see you on the other side." Paran grinned fiercely. They had done it. The way was open to deliver their supernova into the dark heart of Rixen space. Humanity's fury was about to dawn. "You heard her!" he barked. "All hands, battle stations. Take us to the first target star. We have a core to crack." As the crew erupted into activity, Paran turned to watch their destination grow on the view screen. It was a seemingly ordinary yellow star, one of billions in the galaxy. But in minutes, it would be transformed into an instrument of humanity's wrath. "On my mark, deploy primary emitter array," he ordered, heart pounding. Retribution was at hand. "Let's shake the foundations of the heavens. In 3, 2, 1, mark." A hush fell over the bridge of the Supernova 1 as the planet-sized emitter array deployed and locked into position, aimed squarely at the star now dominating the main view screen. After evading detection and slipping deep into Rixen territory, the moment of destiny had arrived. It was time to unleash their civilization-ending superweapon. Chief Engineer Saul Paran stood gripping the command console, knuckles white. He solemnly watched waves of visible radiation flickering from the star's photosphere as the magnetic containment field struggled to hold back the gravitational pressure of its core. Currents of plasma wider than Jupiter raged beneath that deceptively calm surface. "Emitters charging," announced his weapons officer, reaching critical resonance in T-2 minutes. Paran gave a silent prayer that their calculations were correct. Although untested, the instruments of the Supernova 1 had to precisely destabilize the core fusion reaction, igniting the star into a deadly exploding fireball. Failure would give away their position deep in Rixen space. There could be no second chance. Resonance cascade initiated, core instability rising past safety thresholds. Sensors warned as crimson warnings flashed. They had committed the point of no return. The star's fate was sealed. Now the roiling plasma currents inside began to surge wildly, like a beast sensing the trap closing around it. Great tornadoes of stellar matter, each larger than worlds, erupted as the magnetic field started to buckle. "Resonance cascade is self-sustaining," his chief science officer reported breathlessly. "We've done it!" Paran watched the spectacle of the dying star with a mixture of awe and dread. Dread not for themselves, but for the billions of Rixen citizens unknowingly in the apocalypse's crosshairs. Despite their cruelty as overlords, most were innocents about to be consumed in humanity's righteous fury. Paran offered a silent prayer for their souls before steeling himself again. This was a necessary evil. Now the star began to swell rapidly, bloated by the runaway fusion erupting in its core. An eerie silence gripped the crew as they watched their creation come to violent life. Ghostly neutrinos, the star's death cry, began washing over the hull. "Helm, commence emergency maneuvers on my mark," Paran said. They had danced with oblivion long enough. "Emergency thrusters ready. Get us clear of the shock wave." Minutes stretched into eternity as the star shredded itself from within. Suddenly, a bright flare erupted on the surface, like a crack of lightning splitting the star open. A visible wall of fire raged outward, larger than worlds, consuming everything it touched. "Mark! Full emergency thrust!" Paran shouted. A thunderous roar reverberated through the massive ship as the thrusters ignited, violently throwing the crew forward. Paran clung desperately as acceleration crushed him. Through the main screen, he watched the ravenous supernova swell like the hand of an angry god seconds from their annihilation. The ship shook furiously, its hull groaning under unimaginable stresses not felt since its construction. But Perron had overseen every inch of its design himself. He knew it would hold, barely. Through sheer force of will, he resisted the blackness of unconsciousness creeping into his vision as G-forces mounted. Just when he felt on the edge of blacking out, the shaking subsided. Supernova wavefront, receding on rear scopes, reported helm control. We're in the clear. Perron's legs nearly buckled in relief beneath him. Gasping, he forced himself upright in the command chair. Send telemetry on Supernova's expansion back to command. Mission objective achieved. The Rixen border is breached. Despite the triumphant news, no cheers erupted from the weary crew. There was only somber contemplation at the staggering destruction they had unleashed. On the rear scopes, the raging stellar tsunami continued to expand outward, sweeping aside planets and anything else it touched. An entire Rixen sector had just been erased from the galaxy. So it begins, Perron muttered to himself. Helm, set course for the next border star. More await humanity's fury. He took a brief moment of satisfaction seeing the vital signs of his hardy crew already stabilizing. There would be other shockwaves to weather ahead. Their mission of vengeance had only just begun. Settling back into the command chair, Perron watched the raging supernova light their path forward through the inky void. Let the Rixens now tremble at the wrath they had awoken in humanity. With righteous fire, his crew would split their despised empire into burning fragments until every enslaved species saw liberation. This was merely the first star to feel humanity's unmatched fury. More would soon follow. Aboard the ravaged command deck of the Supernova 1, Chief Engineer Saul Perron clung weakly to a support rail, fresh blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. The battered ship quaked around him from repeated shockwaves as another Rixen border star exploded into oblivion ahead. They were deep in enemy space now, methodically targeting stars across multiple sectors. Most of the Rixen home fleet had been lured away by resistance diversions. Those that remained were unable to stop the relentless advance of Perron's apocalyptic juggernaut. Reading full supernova detonation on target Zeta Percy, his sensor officer rasped through the smoke and sparks of the ruptured consoles around her. Perron managed a pained grin. Confirmed kill. That's 12 stars erased for 12 decades of Rixen oppression. How much longer can their rotten empire endure? No one answered. His depleted bridge crew was near collapse from exhaustion, stopping only to ignite the next star. Perron himself had no idea how he still stood. Some primal fury deeper than blood and bone drove him now, a fury unmatched by any force in the universe. Helm, set course for the Alnilam system, he ordered. We end this at the snake's head. One last star to free them all. Alnilam, a brilliant ultra-giant, was the heart star of the Rixen capital world. Destroying it would decapitate their empire in one apocalyptic blow. Perron watched the ravaged ship limp onward through streams of particle debris. Most weapon systems were now fried, but the emitter array remained intact, still hungry for vengeance. After a decade commanding this ship across the stars, he knew each groan and creak of its space frame by heart. It would hold together long enough to deliver humanity's final wrath. Sir, sensors detect multiple Rixen battle groups converging on our position, Tactical warned. It seemed the enemy had finally awakened to the threat. Perron straightened defiantly. Let them come. They cannot stop destiny. He would tear the stars down with his bare hands before being denied now. On the tactical display, swarms of Rixen destroyers and cruisers appeared, attempting to surround their position. Perron ignored them. The Supernova's depleted shields would only protect them so long against the coming onslaught. Reserve power to engines and the primary emitter, he commanded, ramming speed for Alnilam. Under full burn, the battered ship surged forward. Perron gripped the command rail with feverish intensity as the Rixen ships closed in, unleashing torrents of firepower. The deck shuddered violently as shields failed and explosions burst across the hull. Clouds of venting atmosphere swirled outside viewports, but still they accelerated, impervious to the blows raining down. Their date-end-date fur obsession drowned all else. Through the chaos, the blue-white inferno of Al-Nalam swelled until it filled the entire view screen. "Emitter array still online," his weapons officer reported with hope rekindled. "Mirrors aligning for final sequence." Perron tasted blood in his mouth as crushing G-forces mounted, but also the electric taste of vengeance soon fulfilled. Let the Rixens take their best shot. They were out of time. "Firing sequence initiated," came the final shout above the din. Through the smoke, Perron saw the star ahead flare wildly as their beam pierced its heart. Cracks of blazing plasma erupted across its surface. The very heavens groaned in protest. "For our children's children," Perron cried hoarsely. "No more chains." As Al-Nalam transformed into a raging solar tsunami, the battered Supernova 1 finally shattered apart under the next salvo. Perron closed his eyes, ready for the end. His life's purpose was complete. With their sacrifice, humanity would finally be free. Suddenly, everything went silent and still around him. No fire or chaos, only stars, tranquil and timeless. Perron opened his eyes. Had death taken him? "Not yet, my friend." Saul turned in amazement to see Gita Gopalan seemingly standing in space beside him. Her form glowed with warm light. "Our time comes to all, but your fight is not done," she said kindly, taking his hands in hers. "Look now on what you have wrought." As one, they turned to behold their handiwork. The tsunami of light from Al-Nalam had engulfed the Rixen armadas, sweeping aside their tyranny in cosmic justice. And beyond, Perron saw the quadrant ablaze with hope. The long night was ending. A new dawn for humanity and all enslaved species had come at last. Tears of joy streamed down Perron's face. Their sacrifice had carved a path to freedom across the stars. The burden of vengeance that had driven him could finally be lifted. He was ready for this last shore. "Then come," Gita's spirit urged warmly. "Others await us beyond the light. The work of peace begins." With her hand in his, Saul Perron passed gently into legend, leaving only light behind to guide all those who came after.